So you go grocery shopping, you fill up the gas tank, maybe you just get your rent renewal notice in the mail, and every single time, you're probably thinking the exact same thing I am. Wait, didn't the news just say inflation is basically under control now? Yeah. Look, if you are feeling frustrated right now, you are absolutely not alone. The news tells us one thing, but your wallet, it's telling you something entirely different. Today, in this explainer, we're going to uncover the truth. We'll break down exactly what is actually going up, why it's happening, and why those official numbers you see in the headlines almost never match the reality your bank account is experiencing.
Which brings us to the big question we need to answer. As of June 2026, the official numbers are telling us that prices are up 3.5% compared to a year ago. Sounds like it's lower than the worst of it, right? But if that official number says things are cooling down, why does your paycheck feel completely drained by the end of the month? Why does everything just feel so much heavier? If you feel like your money is buying way less than it used to, I promise you, you are not imagining it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is exactly how we're going to peel back the onion on the economy today. A reality check, the category breakdown, the tariff factor, the wage squeeze, and finally, what you can actually do about it.
Section 1. Reality check, the official number versus reality.
So, the headline Consumer Price Index for June 2026 is sitting at an average of 3.5%. Technically, that is a drop from the spring when it had accelerated to between 3.8 and 4.2%. Because of that drop, the news pushes this whole cooling inflation narrative. But here is the catch that nobody really explains well. That 3.5%, it's just an average. It is an average across absolutely everything: electronics, furniture, medical care, plane tickets, you name it. But you don't buy a perfect average of the entire economy every week, do you? Your personal inflation rate depends entirely on what you actually spend your money on. And for most of us, our shrinking paychecks are going toward things we simply cannot avoid.
Part 2. Category breakdown. The things you must buy.
When we strip away things like electronics and plane tickets, we are left with the absolute core necessities: food, housing, and energy. Think of the Consumer Price Index as this giant pie. We've got slices for medical care, apparel, recreation, all of that. But look at the massive slices for shelter, food, and transportation. These aren't just large slices. They are the most unavoidable slices. You have to eat, you have to have a roof over your head, and you have to get to work. And the harsh reality is, these massive, critical pieces of the pie are the ones swinging the absolute hardest. Now, what's really interesting here is the vivid disconnect between the average and reality. Check out that overall CPI sitting at a mild 3.5%. Now look at gasoline, up over 26% compared to a year ago. Yes, gas did drop nearly 10% month over month in June specifically, but if you zoom out over the full 12 months, you are paying dramatically more. And look at beef, up nearly 12%. When your daily essentials are spiking by double digits, a 3.5% overall average means absolutely nothing to your wallet. Let's actually break down a typical grocery receipt. Overall, grocery prices are up roughly 2.7% year over year, and restaurant prices are up around 3.4%. But again, averages hide the real story. Beef, up 12%. Fresh vegetables are up almost 10%. Fish and seafood are up over 6%. Meanwhile, look at the bottom. Eggs are actually down close to 28% from their massive spike last year. So hey, if you happen to buy a lot of eggs, great. But if your grocery cart is heavy on beef, fresh vegetables, and seafood, you are getting hit significantly harder than that 2.7% average suggests. And then we have shelter. This is the big one, mainly because it's the largest single chunk of most people's budget. Rent and homeowner costs are up 3.3% over the past year. Now, the silver lining is that the monthly increase in June was actually one of the smallest we've seen in years. Rent growth does appear to be slowing down. However, slowing down does not mean prices are dropping. It just means they're climbing a bit slower. Shelter prices remain painfully elevated, and because it's your biggest expense, this is the category that truly hurts the most. None of these costs are just temporary blips anymore, guys. They are permanently higher. Section 3. Tariff explanation: the hidden tax. So the crucial point is understanding a hidden mechanic driving up costs that almost nobody explains in plain English: government tariffs. Over the past year, the U.S. has actually seen some of the highest tariff rates since the 1940s, averaging somewhere around 10 to 13%. Economists estimate that these tariffs alone have noticeably added to inflation. Here is exactly how this functions, step by step. Step 1. The U.S. government puts a tax, a tariff, on goods imported from other countries. Step 2. That tax is technically paid by the U.S. company importing the product, not the foreign country. Step 3. Research from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York found that nearly 90% of that cost ends up being passed right on to American businesses and consumers. The foreign exporters don't absorb it. Which brings us to step 4. Companies either shrink their profit margins or, much more often, they simply raise prices to cover the tax.
When we add all of that up, this cost shifting acts exactly like a hidden tax on you, the consumer. The Tax Foundation put a specific number on this. They found tariffs functioned like an average hidden tax increase of about $1,000 per U.S. household in 2025 alone. And there's roughly 700 more expected in 2026, which adds about 0.8 percentage points to core inflation. So when you look at a product on the shelf and wonder why it is suddenly $3 more expensive than last year, tariffs are very often a real, measurable part of that answer. Section 4. The wage squeeze. Compounding the pain. Honestly, this is the ultimate reason people feel poor right now. It is the growing gap between the rising prices we just walked through and the harsh reality of slowing wage growth. As prices have stayed elevated, wage growth has been actively slowing down at the exact same time. It's a squeeze from both sides. When your paycheck grows slower than the prices around you, your real purchasing power, what your money can actually buy, shrinks. It totally doesn't matter if the physical number on your paycheck looks the same or even slightly higher. Your money simply doesn't go as far. Because incomes just aren't stretching far enough, people have to find a way to make up the difference. This is why Americans currently hold a staggering $1.25 trillion in credit card debt. Even more telling is that people are increasingly using buy now, pay later services. And they aren't just using them for a new TV or a couch. They're using them to afford everyday essentials like groceries. When you have to borrow money just to put food on the table, it's the clearest sign possible that regular income isn't keeping up with regular expenses. And this brilliantly illustrates why things feel so dire. Humans do not experience inflation as a clean annual average. We experience it through a compounding effect. Remember, a 3.5% price increase this year doesn't exist in a vacuum. It sits right on top of the 15 to 20% cumulative price jumps we've seen over the past few years. Prices didn't just go up once, they stacked. So when you hear the year-over-year number looks moderate, remember you are comparing today's prices to an already inflated baseline from a couple of years ago. That is exactly why nothing actually feels cheaper. Let's move to our final section and see how this builds into what you can do. Section 5. What you can do. Practical takeaways. Understanding the big economic picture is only helpful if it leads to actionable steps, right? So here are 4 rapid-fire practical takeaways to protect your budget right now. Number 1, track your own personal inflation rate. If your spending leans heavily on gas, groceries, or rent, your cost of living increase is higher than the headline number. Budget for your reality, not the news. Number 2, regularly audit your recurring subscriptions. Small monthly charges add up incredibly fast when everything else is rising around them. Number 3, please be very cautious with buy now, pay later for everyday essentials. It can quietly turn a short-term cash flow gap into a huge long-term debt. And number 4, adjust your emergency fund target. A cushion designed to cover 3 to 6 months of expenses a few years ago won't cover 3 to 6 months today. It is a moving, growing target, and your savings need to grow with it. We've covered a lot of ground in this explainer today, from hidden taxes to the reality of the grocery aisle. But now I want to hear from you. Look at your own budget over the last few months. Which category is hitting your budget the absolute hardest right now? Is it gas at the pump, groceries at checkout, or the monthly rent check? Think about your own biggest price shocks and let me know down in the comments. I'll be reading through them to guide our future topics. Until then, keep tracking your own numbers and stay focused.